Okay.
Welcome to the Liberated Feminine Podcast. I'm Lucy Lampy, your host, and in today's episode, we have Beth with us, recurring, and one of my favorite guests, Priscilla Amie, who is an intuitive reader and somatic healer, and so much more. Even that feels very simplified. She has done so much for me personally, and most recently, really landing into myself in my birthplace after becoming a mom again, and this theme of grieving and celebrating at the same time the death and birth portal of motherhood that is not limited to the first time you become a mother, but it happens every single time you birth a soul into this world. So we want to bring this conversation into the space. And also recently, for those of you who haven't checked it out, I did have 3 of my close mama friends on a 4-way conversation about what it's like to have a baby in 2025 and what comes with that relationally and personally. So check that out as well if this is up your alley. But without further ado, Priscilla, welcome to the space. Welcome back. And what is like drawing you to this conversation lately?
It's really interesting 'cause I'm not a mom yet. But in my line of work, the universe always sends me what I need to work through. And so even though I'm single and not currently with a partner, I can feel that next phase of my life coming very quickly. And I work with a lot of women trying to get pregnant. I work with a lot of women that are pregnant and dealing with different health issues. HG is a lot of people come to me for that. And then also I just work with a lot of moms. And I'm an aunt to 22 nieces and nephews. So I have
Woo!
been very surrounded by motherhood my entire life. And I've been very involved with helping rear some of my nieces and nephews, and I've been around way too many pregnant women. So I've experienced a lot of pregnancy. It was like someone was always pregnant. But I've just been feeling the call that this is what I'm preparing my life for. And so I see it a lot. And just pregnancy is a death and rebirth portal. And we can prepare for it before, we can prepare in the middle when we're pregnant, or when we get to it afterwards. It doesn't matter what place you're at. This conversation is applicable to anyone that feels the call of motherhood, no matter what stage you're currently at. And, it's just not talked about a lot with moms. And I saw this, especially with one of my sisters, is, we as women, right, we have a job, we have a career, we're doing this, we're doing that. And then all of a sudden, our priorities completely shift.
Mm-hmm.
We have someone that we're responsible. We have someone that this little tiny human that we need to keep alive. And that is intense. And also just the hormones and the changes in our body, but just on a soul contract level, like you were saying earlier, your experience and initiation to motherhood will happen with each child that you have, right? We have this thing that is in our body, and of course, that's going to shift things energetically. Of course, that is going to trigger things in our body, just like the relationships we have with everyone else. But even more so in motherhood, this is a soul that you have a contract with to experience certain things in life. And that process can start before you even get pregnant. This is something that happened in your pregnancy, and we've talked about this previously, where she kind of came, you had that miscarriage. She was like, "Hi, I'm just saying hello." But this baby also had things that she wanted you to work through before she even came, which is obviously it's fascinating, and we could start working and playing with these energies, but also just this realization of understanding that motherhood makes you a new person, right? It is an initiation process. And we have to take space and give time to grieving the past version of yourself. It's so important. And we don't spend enough time with that. You just expect it to be something new. And that's not fair. there's things that we have to grieve in order to fully let go and put behind. But it's not just about letting go, it's also about integrating and really cherishing and cultivating this energy to be your most powerful and best self, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot that goes a lot, and there's different, I feel like a series of little things that we grieve along the way, and there's also so much happening at the same time, in life, logistically taking care of a little tiny human that it can easily just be glazed over. And that's something that I've told Brendan too, because he's very attuned to my energy, as you know. And so he'll be like, "Hey, what's up? What's happening? What's weighing on you?" And like, let me see. I haven't even checked in. Let me see what that's about. And and even if it's something small like that whole bit that I think I talked with you about before I shared it publicly in a post about grieving that I never had the kind of father that Brendan is to our daughter. And it was like a deep sadness. I was like, "Oh, I'm so happy that she has it. I am, oh, like, yes, 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 she deserves all of it." And then there's this piece of like, "Oh, but I didn't get to have that, and I never will, because that
Yeah.
part of my life is done." And so it's also these things I feel will be mm, more directly in our face, if we're at all tuned in with our emotions and can take a moment to do that and honor that little girl that didn't get to be the apple of her dad's eye, watching her daughter be the apple of his. So things like that. There's so many opportunities.
And I just want to point out something right there. So, this experience that you're having with your latest daughter, right? That same experience, right? She is triggering pain that you were holding on to and suppressing with Callie and with Alexi, right?
Yeah.
That pain got brought up when you were shown different things with Amaya, right? And the
Mhm.
same thing can happen with us in different ways with just even having one child, right? Is
Yeah.
bringing us back to past versions of ourselves where we are still holding on to things. Like I've watched this happen with my sisters a lot is, with daughters, right? Seeing themselves at that age, right? And with the
Mhm.
story you just told, you were seeing Callie and Alexi at Amaya's age, right? And so that
Yeah.
same process, right, can happen with us where these things from our childhood gets brought up when we see our child and you're like, when they're say like 5 years old, and then you're brought back to things that you're holding on when you were 5 years old, and you look at your child and you're like, how on earth could someone treat a 5-year-old like that, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is children are meant to do with that for us, right? That is part of our contracts with them. They are meant to show us things that we are still carrying, right? And our love for them, it will show us the lack of love that we received, or the lack of love that we gave to ourselves, or the things that we thought we were worthy of as a little girl. And it just, we see it so differently when you're seeing it in your child that you love and would do anything for.
Yeah.
And that is so important to be aware of that because we have to understand our children are meant to trigger us, right? And it's not to drive us crazy, it's the ultimate healing portal, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
it's a difference, we will learn specific lessons through romantic relationships, our parental relationships, but our children, right? It's a very specific healing portal. And so many moms aren't warned about that. And then it just hits them when they're in postpartum or they have a million things going on. Moms need more sleep and they don't get any, right?
Yeah, then the nervous system too on top of everything else, and you can't think clearly, there's a mental fog, there's all the spiritual stuff happening, the energetic stuff, there's a lot, so it's like, no wonder so many moms feel completely disconnected from themselves and even from their kids. There can be I remember with my first 2, babies who are now almost adults, it's crazy, Um, one of them is about to turn 18. I literally I can't believe it. Like, how did this happen? But with them, there were so many moments of feeling just numb and disengaged because it was almost like an overload of all the things that were coming up. I couldn't process them, you know? I That was the best that I could do at that time. And so so much of their early years were just a blur. I was just surviving. And surviving is still surviving. So I don't want to knock it. And also
Yeah.
I'm grateful to have the spaciousness to heal some deeper stuff this time around.
And another thing that if you have an abandonment wound, that will come front and center and rear its
Oh
ugly
yeah.
head. And that's something that you need to know, right? It's something that you need to have that conscious awareness of, or it will blindside you, right? And motherhood will show you all the ways that you've been previously abandoning yourself, right? We don't always realize it when there's no pressure on it and there's the moment we don't take these actions to choose ourselves. But then when you have a child, the option to choose yourself feels like it goes away, right? And so all of those times that you abandon yourself, right, they will come to the surface, right, channeled through the portal of motherhood, right? And it's
Mhm.
it's lonely. It's so lonely.
Yeah. Yeah. It really can be.
And, just there was this beautiful video I saw on TikTok of someone that is currently in the pregnancy portal, and she made this comment about how people were talking about her bouncing back or afterwards and that societal pressure to bounce back. And she said something along the lines of, I've realized I need to accept that I will never be going back to the same. My boobs will never look the same. My body will not look the same. And we need to take time to grieve them, right? Especially in a patriarchal society when there's been put so much pressure on our looks, on our body, on our value, right? How many times have we heard, what do you bring to the table, right? There's materialism and this expectation on women in society that we can't ignore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. There is, and also to add to that, I think the internal pull that we feel after giving birth, that I've definitely felt with each one. This time I was like, how can I navigate this differently? Because it had been so long. There's a lot that I didn't remember.
Mhm,
But it's this pull to just feel like yourself again.
mhm.
And it's something you really can't rush. Like you can't, you can't rush it. I've had so many, I've just been, as you know, because you've worked with my energy, my energy field aura, all these, you've seen the scattered mess that it's been through the season of not only having a baby, but also moving countries again and returning back to my homeland, being amongst family, all of the stuff that comes with that, just feeling my energy really all over the place. And in addition to whatever's happening astrologically this year, which is insane. Um, so there's been a lot of just not feeling settled. And so as eager as I've been to feel settled, it's like I know that I can't rush it. So I'm enjoying the landing. It's like the landing gear is down. We've been kind of coasting. We're like on the ground now. This is what it feels like. But I'm waiting to fully land and get off the plane. It's like that. But making peace with wherever we are in the process is a really big piece of it too.
One thing that you said at the beginning of that I want to go back to is you said you want to feel like yourself again. And this
Mhm.
is part of the big problem and what we wanted to talk about today is that
Yep.
you will never be that version of yourself again. And the longing to go back to that version of yourself will never happen. And I just want to shift the perspective on that because this is a life altering, changing event, right?
Yeah.
Not just energetically, but physically, right? Emotionally, spiritually, right? And that's where so much of the pain comes from, is us wanting to be the past version of ourselves. And that's where it's important to grieve and realize, like, you will never be that past version of yourself, right? You
Yeah.
will always be a new version, just like losing a loved one, right? A death of someone you care about. You will never be the same person after that. It will fundamentally change you, right? And so that's what we also need to see, right? It will fundamentally change you, but we also need to just let go and grieve that version. And how do we shift ourselves into that new version of ourselves with love and empathy and grace? And part of that problem is giving ourselves permission to grieve that old
Mhm.
version of you. Give
Yeah.
yourself permission to be sad about it, right? Miss her, love her, say goodbye to her, right? And pull what you can into this new version of you. But that's the thing, is like you're looking to go back to someone that no longer exists. She's
Yeah.
it's a yeah, that's the thing about death and rebirth portals. Like, we become a new version of ourselves. And
Yeah.
you can go back to that past version and properly let go and grieve and appreciate her and thank her for everything that she's done for you. Just like we go back to versions of that little inner girl. Because if you don't address that and if you don't grieve her, that is going to stay trapped into you. It is going to leak out into ways that you don't even consciously notice, right? It is
Mhm.
so important to not ignore that. And that's the problem, is we are all told that, okay, well, you're a mom now. Like, we're expected not to complain or do this, or you should be grateful because not everyone gets to experience the joys of motherhood or whatever it is. Moms are so shamed for
Yeah.
not just
For
being
everything.
grateful for what they have.
Yeah.
I
And then
would
if
love to
there's
hear,
any
yeah.
emotion, there's that because I'll see moms, on the internet, for example, sharing how overwhelmed they feel by motherhood, which is completely valid. And then there's people like, well, at
Yeah.
least you have a healthy kid. Yeah, that doesn't take away from the fact that, when your nervous system is on the fritz, it's not like you're ungrateful for your child. Let's say someone who went through a really big, intense conception fertility journey. They're no less grateful because they're feeling overwhelmed. It doesn't make them, immune to the human capacity. But I think also another piece is that understanding when we do grieve, let's say a first time mom, grieving not having herself just to herself anymore, not having the spaciousness or the alone time or whatever that may be, the predictability to be able to grieve that and say, okay, like that I know that consciously once they get bigger, I'll have more time when they go to school, whatever, I'll have more space, I can plan more once they're past this age. But it's not even about that because it will never be the same. It never will. You'll always have this person that is going to be like, hey, mom, what do you think about this? Hopefully, if you have a relationship with them, um, can you help me with that? I need to talk to somebody about this. And so it's not like they just stop needing you at any point. It just changes the way that they need you. So there is this very real grief. And when you grieve what's beautiful that opens up is that you get to access the parts of you that you had before, but they're richer. They're more expanded. It's a whole different caliber of that aspect of you. Like now, getting back on my pole feels even more powerful than it did before having this baby. And I have a whole different reverence for my body and what it just did in the last year. And it's like I can really appreciate in a whole new depth what it is has done and is doing. And so, but I think it's just also this piece of not rushing landing into who we are becoming. So it's that. It's like grieving who we were, recognizing it will never be that. But also, when we do grieve, it opens up space to realize that, oh, what I'm expanding into is actually really amazing. So it's both. It's like we can grieve and we can celebrate but there's so much skipping over that grieving part.
Because in society, yeah, it's just moms are shamed for that, right? It's be grateful for what you have. And so when we feel like we don't have permission to voice these or just even guilt. So many women feel guilt and shame for even feeling that.
Mhm.
We will suppress it, right? It will eventually physically show up in our body if we do not address it. And
Yeah.
it's so important for women to talk about this, be loud about it, share about it, own it, right? Validate yourself. Know that it is okay. It is normal, right?
Yeah.
It is the death and rebirth of a past version of yourself. And you are important. Your feelings are valid, right? That's the big thing is just giving yourself permission to feel all of these things. Because if we discredit those, we will just feel the world shutting out smaller and smaller and smaller. Abandoning ourselves will feel louder and louder and louder, right? We will feel lost. We will feel disconnected because that's what happens, right? When we don't allow ourselves to feel things, when we guilt and shame ourselves for whatever it is we're feeling, we will
Yeah.
start disconnecting from our body. And it is even easier to do that when you're exhausted.
Mhm.
You're hormonal, right? Your nervous system starts getting dysregulated, and it's so hard to stay grounded in your body. And one of the most important phases of your life, where being
Yeah.
grounded is that safety line. And so it's just really giving yourself permission to feel all of those things and be loud about it, right?
Yeah.
Sit down and
Yeah.
write a list of all of the things that you are going to miss about that past version of yourself. Hold a funeral, right? Hold a funeral for the old version of Lucy, right? Sit with all of the emotions of loss that come up so you can let them go, right? So you can integrate them, right? So you can pull them in and they create a sense of power and stability, right? Because if we ignore them, it will own us,
Yeah, or
right?
it'll
We'll
come out
get,
in illness or something or, manifest in some
yeah,
way that'll get our attention.
right? Yeah, if whatever we ignore, right, it will come out. It'll come out in so many ways. And so it's so important, right, to just allow yourself that grief. Because if we don't, then we won't fully step into the potential of how beautiful motherhood could be, right? It's
Mhm.
just that self love and grace is so, 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 so important. You will
Yeah.
drown yourself and suppress emotions if you don't give yourself permission to feel them.
Yeah. And one of the things the key biggest key indicators for anyone listening who this is resonating with and you're thinking maybe, well, I don't know if I really have anything. Maybe I have already, you know, grieved or moved forward or whatever. I don't know if there's anything there because maybe there's not something big triggering you, but I would challenge you to ah, you know how there's always that person on social media somewhere who just loves motherhood. Like she doesn't seem to care to mind at all that she's no longer, the past self. She just seems like she's fully present and she enjoys it and she's calm when the baby's losing their shit and she just like, man, I love this. Like I'm just made for this. If you feel those listening any sort of jealousy, cringe, disgust, like ugh, you know, that kind of feeling, skepticism, girl, there's some stuff there. And I say this from my own personal experience because oh my God, that used to just annoy the hell out of me. I'm like, what? Do you, I would, somewhere in the back of my mind, I would wish that they just had it harder. I wish that they would suffer just a little bit because it just didn't seem fair that they got to enjoy it and I didn't. And so obviously, there was a lot of stuff in the way, also paired with the fact that, Priscilla, I haven't told you this yet, but I more recently discovered the difference between my mean Black Moon Lilith and my true Black Moon Lilith. And it makes so much sense now because I have carried so much shame around motherhood, around like I'm letting my kids down or am I not doing a good enough job? And everyone around me is like, are you kidding me? What are you looking at? And so I have needed extra validation from Brendan, to just remind me like, "Hey, you're doing a good job." With all of the kids, not just this one, And I'm like, "Am I though?" Because it's in Cancer, because my true Black Moon Lilith is in Cancer. So, but all these things like themes of, how we heal the shame around motherhood is so important. Actually, I think Brendan's gonna bring in the baby because she's hungry. So, Priscilla, I would love for you to take the stage and speak to perhaps the different ways that you've seen this kind of shame come up in your family and in your clients.
Yeah. You know, one thing about my family, there is the foundation of our generational trauma is shame. And it's been hard to watch some of my sisters not address any of that shame and pass it down to my children in different ways that our parents have passed it down to us. And shame and guilt are the two lowest frequencies that we can feel in our body. They do not feel good. They will spiral us to the depths of despair. And so, it's been hard to see that. And most of it is just like this guilt, right? Guilt guilt and shame will keep us from showing up in the ways that we want it to. And I have watched it flow out in different controlling, manipulation, right? Hurtful words. And it's really painful to see, right? Because I love all of them so dearly. I want better for everyone so dearly, but it's like it will control us. And I've watched my sisters make these different choices also just based off of that loss of freedom. They never took the time to take care of themselves, love themselves. They threw themselves into motherhood and just focused on all of the action, right? It's like almost like these checklists, and they never emotionally checked in with themselves. And the problem is if you don't do that, it's like shaking up a can of soda. It'll eventually explode, right? And we have to take time to address our shame and guilt, or they will control our lives. And in the stage of motherhood, right? Like you were talking about earlier, all of a sudden you're like, am I a good mom? Like, what? And you're an amazing mom, right? But that doesn't stop us from feeling shame and guilt, right? And so it's like we have to sit with this, right? We have to sit with it and figure out where it's coming from. Because if you don't figure that out, if you don't face that part of yourself, it will control your life and you will unintentionally hurt your children, right? Because you will just pass more of that frequency down one way or another. And it'll look different for everyone. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad mom. It just means that you haven't taken responsibility for your trauma, right? And that is a hard thing. And you can't blame yourself for something you were never taught, right? You weren't
Yeah,
taught
exactly.
to face any of these things, right? Becoming a parent is also about reparenting yourself, right? Catching these moments of yourself, right? And going back and giving yourself the love and whatever it is that you need, right? It is all about like reparenting yourself. And just remembering is your children, right? They will have this astrology chart that is their signature little energetic imprint, right? And you have yours. And each child is going to be meant to interact with you in a different way, activate you in a different way, trigger you in a different way. And that's beautiful, right? That
Yeah.
is beautiful if you see that for what it is. You see, right, what they're going to pull out of you in different ways as a gift, right? Something beautiful, right? Not as something to take away from you, not something to traumatize you more, right? We want to flow with it,
Mhm.
not fight it.
Yeah.
And I just, it's so important not to suppress the emotions that come up with motherhood, not to shame or guilt yourself for it. It's okay to have a panic that you're not going to have your own space anymore, right? I am
Mhm.
someone that loves her alone time. it is okay to give yourself a moment to freak out about that. That's the problem is we get so shamed for all of these big emotions that we feel. And like
Mhm.
going back to what you're saying, you're supposed to just be grateful, right? Or
Yeah,
you're
and
not
just
being
take
this,
it.
you're not being that, and just take it. And it's so important to just allow yourself and give yourself permission to feel that. But it's like
Yeah.
we will never make peace, right? It's like that abandonment wound or the shame or the guilt. It's like it's always going to be in the background, running like an app if we ignore it. We may not
Mhm.
see it, we may not be consciously thinking about it, but it will be flowing through everything that we do. And
Yeah.
so, like I was saying earlier, throw yourself a funeral for that past version of yourself. Really sit down. Think about a memorial that you went to. What did that look like, right? Honoring
Yeah.
her. Write
Mhm.
down everything that you loved about that version of yourself. What did she have that you don't have now, right? Because a lot of times we will think these things are getting taken away, right? Just because we're not acknowledging and addressing them. Like we'll have all of these suppressed emotions coming up and flowing in different ways and we're not consciously aware of that. And so it can feel like something different. And so it's just going through and actually taking a look at all of these perceived losses that you have and really sitting with them and going to the version of you now. Has she really lost that? How have some of these things shifted into something new, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is this new version of you have that the previous version didn't have, right? How can we combine the two together, right? And say goodbye to some of those things, right? Say goodbye to that past version of yourself, but also see this version that you're becoming, right? Because
Yeah.
if you actually sit with this new version of yourself, the Lucy that has become a mom, you're also going to have a long list of things that she's gained.
Mhm. Yeah, and without that
Oh,
vision, I think it's easy to just get lost in the illusion of loss, of
mhm.
just loss, because that's true, we do gain so much, and and otherwise, we can resent our own kids, we can resent our partners, we can resent life, and I honestly, I feel like that's the root cause of the whole stereotype of moms needing to have half a bottle of wine at the end of the day, you know? Because we're coping. And also, again, like, no shame because we definitely fucking, God knows, like, we don't need to add more shame to the pile. And no shame also if you haven't done the work, it's like, it's just being aware. It's like I was telling Brendan just last night, I have these moments where in all of the busyness and buzziness of life right now, it's like I pop out and I can see myself from a faraway perspective, and I see myself kind of just disconnected, disengaged, numb to the like I should be feeling more right now, but I'm not, you know? And so instead of like I should be feeling more here, I should be feeling more happy, more joyful. I just noticed like I'm not feeling much. What's up? Instead of like, ah, damn, what's wrong with me? It's just like, oh, I notice. And let me just make a different decision in this moment right now. I'm not deciding I'm never going to do this again because that means I'm a bad parent. It's in this moment, I'm going to do this and I'll let that be enough. And you do that enough times, you build a whole new identity because you have anchored in all of these little micro experiences. So for those also that don't feel like, okay, I'm ready to just completely take on a new way of being and I don't know how to do that and I think I'm just going to keep failing. It's like just take it one little step at a time.
So one conversation I recently had with a client is I was shocked. She was like, I always thought I was such a terrible mom. And I was like, what? Like, I don't have that visual perception of her at all. And I was like, why did you feel that way? And she was like, I realized like it was all a lie. I was telling myself because she was like, I saw them as taking my freedom away.
Mhm.
And I realized like there was resentment under there. And she's like, realized that over time that she was abandoning herself before she had kids. And then, right, she was projecting on her children that they were the reason she was now abandoning herself. And she was like, realized like I was already abandoning myself. My kids coming in couldn't make me abandon myself. It was already happening. So when they came in and they made it front and center and present, that I was abandoning myself, right? Because I didn't make time, didn't make space. I saw them as the ones, the catalysts that had taken that away from me. And it took, she's done a lot of healing work, and this is like her perspective looking back. And she's like, I realized it just brought it to the surface. They brought my own abandonment wound to the surface. My postpartum experience would have been different if I was someone that didn't abandon myself. They just highlighted it and made it louder and bigger, right? And that's the thing. It doesn't just have to be an abandonment wound. Children are meant to show us and reflect our wounds back to us. And so taking a look at whatever you have as perceived losses as becoming a mother, because it will not be a new thing. It'll be something that was already there. You just weren't looking at it. And children are meant to do that. They are meant to pull things to the surface that we have not handled and addressed. And so all of this perception of motherhood took away this, motherhood took away that, or whatever it is, sitting with that, right? It's not always going to be like black and white like that. Sometimes it's going to take a little digging, a little sleuthing, a little sitting with your body, or going to outside support. I even get my own outside support. It can be really hard sometimes for us to see the things that were hidden from us. And sometimes we need, whether it's a friend, a therapist, an energy healer, whoever it is, it's important to talk these through with other people just as much as it is for us to sit with it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Be- And so paying attention to this list you write of everything you lost in motherhood, right? Or everything that past version of you had that went away, right? Sitting with each of those, because if that is getting highlighted, if it feels bigger, it feels more extreme, there's trapped emotions connected to that that were already there. Maybe it's
Yeah.
generational, maybe it's past lives, or maybe it's something from your teens, your childhood. It would not light up and activate and feel like a deep sense of loss if there wasn't already loss there. And that is what is important. Motherhood will only, it's going to drag up things that are already there, or they wouldn't cross your mind. They wouldn't feel painful. They wouldn't feel like it's something already there every single time. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's so important to take a look at. That's how we find these things that are painful, right? Use
Yeah.
that list as a roadmap of being like, okay, there's going to be something connected to this that I'm still holding on to, that is being
Mm-hmm.
called up front and center, that doesn't feel good. And it's never going to be just that surface of that one thing. There will always be something tied under it. So see
Yes.
that as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
See that as like, wow, this is going to bring up something that was holding me back.
Yeah, that because it doesn't always let's say that someone has done a lot of healing work and really done a lot of ancestral, generational, feminine work, whatever it is, but then they become a parent, and there are inevitably going to be things that just will not come up until you're in that context because it just didn't have the opportunity yet. And so I find that also there can be varying intensities with that. That let's say, I notice it in the subtle things. Like I remember when my older kids were I do remember this part, or even my middle kids now. It's weird to have like a set of older kids, a set of middle kids, a fresh wave of baby now. But when they were all younger, in this range, about 2, 3 months, it's like their nervous systems would reflect back to me exactly what needed to be reflected back to me to just like bring something up. with Amaya, it's like I swear she does it on purpose sometimes. I know she's only like not even 3 months old, but I swear she does. She knows what she's doing, and she will just kind of.
She does.
She really
She's a
does.
very consciously
She's
aware 3-month-old.
It's wild. I mean, she's so into it.
Yeah.
And we'll look at her. And the other day, Brendan was he was like saying something about how big and buggy her eyes were because they're just like so intense. And then I think she took it personal and she started crying. She wasn't hungry. She wasn't tired. She was like, I was like, okay. But she does these things where she'll get fired up just enough to get me to feel something. And then I'm like, there it is. And as soon as I get it, it's like she calms down. It's really, really bizarre. I've never experienced this with any of my kids.
Well, I mean, that's that's the thing, the beautiful. I mean, I can never remember if it's like beta or theta state that kids are in until they're like 5, right? They are telepathic, right? They are just in this open frequency that is like perfect for syncing their energy to us, right? And on an evolutionary standpoint, like that's to help them learn things and grow energetically, right? Because they're
Yeah.
not, and especially as a baby, right? They are going to be so in tune, right? I love that. And that could be, I guarantee you that was probably happening to you before. You just weren't aware of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You didn't have that conscious awareness of what was going on in your
Uh,
previous
and so they had to be
pregnancies.
louder. No, it's like when they were babies, like it's like they had to be louder and louder and make it bigger, and I still wasn't getting it. So of course it just was prolonged.
And saying this, I just want to stop and pause and say, do not shame and guilt yourself for this. I've
Yeah.
had this experience with my cat where he takes on so much of my energy. So when I'm not good, it shows up in him. And then having that awareness of that is what is happening has sent me into a spiral before because I'm like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, I'm hurting my cat. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, this is my responsibility. Why can't I just chill out?
And then it just makes it
And
worse.
so it just makes it worse. And so if you, it's it's so important to have empathy and grace and just reminding yourself how to take your power back in those moments where you feel like whatever's going on with you is impacting your child, right? There is something you can do about it, right? You are constantly having this strong energetic exchange with your baby, right? And so I love what I have to do when people are just, especially when they're like worried or just feeling guilt or shame. How do you take control of that situation? And that is with the energy that you send. So when you're having these moments, right, where that guilt or shame, right, just try to interrupt that and just send them love. Think about how much you love them, right? Because that is you sending energy. That's how we pull ourselves out of that. It's how do you get into that frequency of love or gratitude or whatever it is, and knowing when you make that shift, it can kind of anchor you in because it's like you're going towards the light at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the tunnel of actually doing something that creates change, right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
doing something to have a sense of control in the situation. And so whatever you have to do to get your perception in that mind frame is just how do you bring it out of that shame and that guilt? And it's by doing something different, right? You can only
Mm-hmm.
control here right now. We can't control last week, what you did a month ago, what you did a year ago, but you can
Yeah.
control what you did right now. And this can apply to your kids that are older as well, right? Anytime you catch yourself guilt, shame, worry, whatever it is, right? Try to stop yourself and think about what you want for them.
Mm-hmm.
Step into you have power, right? Use
Yeah.
it.
Oh, and now they're saying that time folds in on itself. It's been found, the quantum studies, and so the present affects and reshapes the past or something, and it's like, oh shit, So on the one hand, I caught myself worrying about using that against myself the other day, where I thought, oh no, does the fact that I haven't been doing this specific thing with these specific ones of my kids negate all of the times that I did it? It's like, no, hold on, that's not what this means. But it's interesting how this can really sneak up on you, and so it is that fact that practice of just bringing in gratitude, and also another piece that I found really really helpful is not not having to reparent myself all the time. I think we do need to learn how to do that, and it takes us so far, and then we just need to let ourselves be mothered by the mother. And so something that I've tapped into, it's been some years, but I feel like I'm returning to this practice more now is um that mother consciousness and just letting her hold me because I'm like tired of parenting everyone and myself. That's a lot of parenting. Like if I just let myself be held, you know, by that consciousness that mothers everything, that loves and has created everything and just be renourished and resourced. So also another little tip there.
It is, it's just important to give yourself so much grace and empathy and just, well, going back to what you were saying, you're like, sometimes I just don't feel, right? And I'm like, I should be feeling. And, sometimes it's okay to just allow yourself be like, no, I don't feel anything. And that is okay in that moment. It's about not forcing yourself and also just being aware that your nervous system might be out of whack right now or whatever it is, and just letting yourself permission to just fall apart sometimes. And that's okay. And just loving yourself through it. Oh, my sweet little baby girl. She's like, Mama, I'm hungry.
Yeah,
I
she's
heard you
like,
talking
I will
about
not
me, so I
wait.
figured I'd come over here.
She's like, it's my turn to guest star on the show. No, she's been, it's interesting too, because she really does respond so much to both of our energies. And the other day she was kind of crashing out and, just doing it, just spiraling. And Brendan was like, okay, that's enough. And she's like, okay. I'm just like, all right. She really, she knows, and that's another thing too that most recently she's really brought out in me is my need to just have those crash out moments and to just be like, it's all just too fucking much, and to let that be and then to
Yes.
let it pass because I mean, this part of the work is not new to me, but in the context of again taking care of a tiny little human, it's like the stakes are higher, you know? And so there have been lots of times where I feel like I don't have space to just lose it. But I can't afford to do that right now. I know, like I can't afford not to do it. Otherwise it bleeds into everything that I'm doing. And it's a big siphoning of energy, like that app running in the background, you know?
Yeah, exactly what you just said. It is we can end up feeling bad about healing no matter what is going on in our life. That is a very universal feeling of being like, I
Mhm.
don't have time for this right now. Right. But the thing is, that's not how life works. Life is messy. It is as much as we try to have a sense of control, that's just not how it works. And that's the thing is like we don't think that we have time for it. And that's another part of the perception, the guilt and the shame. There's always going to be an
Mhm.
underlying of avoidance in there that we're not acknowledging, right?
Yeah.
Because who wants to feel painful emotions? No one does. Who wants to do it when they have a baby to feed?
No,
Definitely not.
yeah.
When they're
And you open up
exhausted?
that can of
Definitely
worms.
not. Yes. And so it's just like giving yourself permission to feel it all, whatever it is, and stop judging yourself for it. It doesn't make you a bad mom, right? And going back to what I was talking about with my sisters, right? If you suppress and you don't address and handle the things, they will come out in your parenting whether you want them to or not. No matter what your
Mhm.
intentions are, no matter what love you have in your heart, what you don't deal with will come out no matter what. That's just how it works. And we
Yeah.
know that with every other area of our life, and it can be hard to see it with motherhood because we're like, it's not about me, it's about them, right?
Yeah, but then they need you to be more regulated. and your nervous
Mhm.
system. They need you to be more that's honestly one of the biggest driving forces my whole last 2 decades in doing this inner work was because I know that they deserve a more whole mom, and my inner child deserves a whole self. And that, it's like the vision again, this the stakes are higher. It's like if I
Things
wasn't
are
willing to
hard.
do it for my inner child at first, then it had to be my own children. And then I became aware of my inner child and what she needed. So, yeah, but this is, the the very same source of shame can be your greatest power.
100%. That is what it's all about, and that is how you find your power, and that is how you find this new version of yourself, right? Is by allowing yourself permission to feel all of these things, not shaming yourself for it, but that is the best thing that you can do for your children is choose yourself, right? And choosing yourself looks like screaming into a pillow sometimes.
Yeah.
Choosing yourself can look like having a really big cry and just allowing yourself to have that. Choosing yourself can be admitting like this fucking sucks, right? After you
Yep.
get puked on, right? That's what it's all about. It's okay, but the thing is like if you don't get that out, your baby's going to feel it, right? Your
Yeah.
child is going to feel it. And so, again, don't shame and guilt yourself, but just starting to shift that perspective of allowing yourself to feel all of these deep emotions is not you being a mad mom. That's being you being a good mom, right?
Mhm.
That is doing what's best for yourself is what's doing best for your child, and it always will be, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
A
that.
child will energetically pick up on those things, right? That if you don't choose yourself, they will be taught not to choose themselves, right?
Yeah. Oh, and a lot
You
of
have
moms,
to,
I feel like
yeah.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, go
On
ahead.
that thought just a lot of I've, reflecting back, it just came to mind a lot of conversations with women who are afraid to really do that and put that into practice because there's a part of themselves they don't trust to not take advantage of that or to not be too selfish or to take it too far and then all of a sudden they are being self-indulgent and they're not just self-caring, you know what I mean? And so to that I would say, and because I've been there too, and I would say, there has to be some faith involved. Have some faith in yourself that you will know where that threshold is, that the places that you are abandoning yourself and calling it normal, um, that there is a middle ground between that and just going like off the rails and just, leaving your kids for a year and be like, I'm gonna go take care of myself.
Yeah. I've
There's
also watched one of my sisters do that.
yeah,
And
I've watched people do that.
that's the thing is if you
Yeah,
look, if you continue abandoning yourself through motherhood, that is not sustainable. That will come crashing down eventually. Will it happen in a decade, 2 decades, whenever it is? Abandoning yourself will come crashing down, always. That it's just not a sustainable thing to carry up forever. If it doesn't come out
yeah,
emotionally, it will come out physically. That's just it, it's one or the other. There's no, well, maybe it'll just stay the same forever. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it's
yeah,
just so important to stop judging yourself. And like you said, trusting yourself, right? Trust yourself. Listen
yeah.
to your intuition. Our
Mhm.
intuition will tell us everything that we need to know, but we ignore it for some reason. And so the
Yeah,
more that you lean into what feels good and what feels right, you don't have to worry about making the wrong choices. And I've had a couple of clients where I've watched them blossom into self-love and choosing themselves first. And one of my favorite clients said to me, she's like, I realized that the best gift in the world I could possibly give
Mhm.
my daughter was choosing myself and prioritizing myself. And I want that so much for her. And so I've done all of these things to put her first, center her first. And I realized that by doing that, I'm teaching her that that's how she's supposed to be as well,
Mhm.
right? So she's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
that's the big thing, right? They're not your child isn't going to see like, oh, that's like what mom does. They're going to say like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do too.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah,
will start
and the
leaking out
boys
to their yeah,
boys learn this is how a woman should be also. This is expected. So it's
right?
yeah, disservice to both.
And if just anytime you need to reground or shift your perspective of that, just ask them like when your daughter or your son grows up, what do you want them to be? Do you want them to be the self-abandoning martyr mother or have a
Mm,
son that expects that out of his
yeah.
wife? No, you would be horrified. You're okay with it happening to you, right? You're
Yeah.
not worthy of it. That's what you deserve. Or it's okay. Like I'm doing this so they don't have to do it. That is an excuse you are telling yourself to validate not putting yourself first.
Yeah.
That's 100% what it is.
She's like,
And
"Yeah,
so
that's right."
she's like, yes. Amaya's like, you show me, mama.
So we take turns with her because he's like, okay, you need, what do you need today? You know, when do you want to have some time to yourself? And also learning that the hard way because there have been times that I haven't, that I've just been like, no, I'm fine, and I'm totally have capacity, and then all of a sudden I don't, and then everybody feels it. It's like, oh, whoops, whoops.
And I think also exactly one of the most important lessons of motherhood that is universal is learning how to receive.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I swear that changes everything. Everything.
And this is something that you've been going through is allowing yourself to receive from Brendan. And so it's
Yeah.
also important to take a look at what we're saying no to, right? And obviously, every circumstance is
Mm-hmm.
different. Some people truly don't have the support that they need, but also it's like
Yeah.
you really need to take a look at. That's one thing I watched one of my sisters so hard is she always said no to him, and then resentment builds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but that's the thing is she never allowed him into that space, right?
Yeah.
We also
Yeah.
need to take a look at what we're not allowing ourselves to receive because we can do it on our own or we should do it because we're the mom. It's yeah, it's very
Oh,
natural to
that.
be very
Oh
clingy
my
about
God.
your baby, right? It's that mother instinct. I have to do it all myself. Like they need their mom, right? And so it's like really taking a look at what the things that you're saying no to because a lot of us will find that there's actually a lot of things that we're saying no to.
Yeah.
And
Small
just
things, big things, everyday things. It's like, how can you let in a little bit of support, even when we don't need it? That's the thing. That's the real practice, is like when we can technically
yeah,
do it, but we consciously decide to let someone else in.
it's huge.
Starting there. Yeah.
Allowing ourselves to receive is such a big, important piece, and really taking a look at like, what am I shutting out? And if you're in one of those situations where you feel like you don't have a lot of help, I would take a look at what your expectations are, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I want to be really careful when I say this because obviously when we have trauma, taking the reins when we're exhausted and hormonal, please have love and grace from yourself. And this is, something you know
Mm-hmm.
deeply about. It's uh, victimhood, right? Victimhood is simply like I hate whatever when it hears that word, they associate it with someone that victimizes themselves. But there's also something deeper on that. Like, that's not always, we're not always consciously calling out that we are a victim, right? Victimhood is just when we are outsourcing responsibility for what happens to us on things that are outside of us, right? Things that have happened to us, people that have hurt us. And what I always say is we have to take responsibility for what our side of the street is. And that does not mean you take accountability for what someone's done to you. It doesn't mean you take accountability for big events that have happened into your life, but it is very important to take a look at your side of the street and how we got there, because nothing can happen to us that we are not an energetic match for, including, right? So if you're in this situation where you have like a partner or something that doesn't help you at all, I would look at what your expectations are and going back to that, like taking responsibility for your side of the street, because nothing can happen that we're not an energetic match for. And just have so much grace and empathy and love for yourself. That is a hard thing to break through, especially when you've had a lot of trauma or people are treating you poorly. But the thing is if someone is not showing up for us, right? What part of you expects them not to show up for you, right? And so it's taking a look at some of those things and really trying to look at, like, what are my expectations that I'm projecting into my reality, right? And it's not about taking responsibility for them. It is just taking a look at, why is my energy in alignment with this, right? Why am I in alignment? And
Yeah.
a lot of times it could be not believing that we're worthy of it, right?
Mm. That's usually I feel like that's the root of all of it. It's like I don't deserve to
Mhm,
be with someone who will really take care of it or who has the
mhm.
awareness to think of my best interest. And so sometimes it is just also a wake up call of, okay, this person is meant to reflect back to me the ways that I don't think that I'm worthy. And then what am I going to do with that information?
What am I going to do with that information? And again, do not blame, shame, or guilt yourself, because everyone starts with an unworthy. Like, no one comes out of the womb being like, I am so worthy, right? That's,
Well, I feel like, yeah, at some point it gets like like just reality in quotation marks gets
yeah.
kind of, you know, forced into our minds and we stop believing. But deep down, it's like we know. We just got to remember. We just got to remember.
But
It's like coming home to yourself.
yeah, pay attention to where you may be blocking yourself from receiving, because this happens in relationships that might be a little unhealthy, but it also happens in relationships like yours where it is healthy. And so that is one of those big initiations of motherhood, is allowing yourself to receive, right? We're meant to be
Yeah.
community creatures. And so taking a look at, do I expect this to happen or am I blocking this? Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, right, there's going to be, there's some reason you're an energetic match for it. So it's about sitting and figuring out what that is, and forgiving yourself for that. We all do that in different areas of our life. We all do. You're not broken, you're not damaged, right? That's just part of life, and working through that and growing through that. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with you to feel that way. And I struggle with receiving so much as well, right? And we have to start sitting with those parts of ourselves. We have to start shifting the perception of ourselves, and just allowing ourselves to receive is so, so, so important.
Yeah. And that's a big part too of there's a grief around that too of grieving the part of us or the version of us that did all the things. And the thing is also we've got to acknowledge I can do all these things, but I don't have to anymore, or I don't actually want to. It doesn't make you any less capable or competent, but grieving that aspect that maybe felt empowered by doing it all, that felt
Mhm.
empowered by saying no to help and spending some time with her and letting her know, but you're amazing. You did great. You're so strong, you're so capable, and now you get to just take a back seat and rest a little bit. And so there's so many layers to this grieving, and I want to essentially wrap up with that and bring the those of you listening back to this invitation of a simple practice. Um, a couple things. One is just coming back to this decision of allowing others in to support you in the smallest ways. Maybe asking, hey, if somebody says, hey, do you need anything? Yes, can you give me a glass of water? You could get it yourself, but just beginning this practice of receivership. And two, to let yourself be, like Priscilla was mentioning, let yourself have a space of a funeral for a past version of yourself, if you can take the spaciousness for that. And in general, just having the compassion for yourself whenever you feel whatever you're feeling, because it is all a part of the human experience. It's let it all be welcome and have space to exist. So, yeah, something you can run with. And Priscilla, anything you'd like to add as we close?
Just a reminder that there can't be growth without grief. And this doesn't just apply to
Mm,
motherhood, right? If we want to grow, we got to go through a little bit of grief. And so just remembering, right? Have empathy, love, grace for yourself, but just validate. If you take one word away from this podcast,
mm,
validate yourself. Give yourself permission to feel, right? And don't allow yourself to feel guilty for it. No,
yeah.
absolutely not. And just know that
Hmm.
there's so much growth waiting for you in this magical new version of yourself if you give yourself the permission and the grief to give a proper send off to that past version of yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
Beautiful. Beautifully said. Yeah, she's falling asleep, so perfect timing. So, yeah, for and again, for anyone who hasn't tuned in to, um, our previous episodes on conscious conception and spirit babies, and then we had another one on, like, moving forward after heartbreak, uh, you definitely but if you wanna catch the full arc of the journey of what brought us to this whole experience, just search up her anywhere her name comes up in the episodes on the liberated feminine. And in the meantime, thank you, Priscilla, for being here again and sharing your
yes,
energy with us. And to
yes.
everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. And as always, here's to liberating your wild feminine heart.